Hello, my name is Rod Lopez, and today I'm going to be talking to you through my digital reflection. Just a little bit of background on me. I am a ninth grade English teacher at USC Hybrid High School, and this is a part of Ednovate Charter Schools. So let's go ahead and get started walking through the inquiry cycles where I'll share along the way some reflections and takeaways that I had from each cycle. So my first cycle was focused on revisiting standards where students have shown low levels of mastery. And so what you'll see as a common thread is that I really chose to dive deep into standards and just really starting to unpack some of the more complex standards. And so for this particular cycle, I was reflecting and thinking that in the past I would often teach a standard once, and then I would assess it for mastery, and then wouldn't revisit it really till the end of the quarter right before exams. And so there was sometimes a loss of student retention and practice. So I wanted to find a way to address this. And so with the help of my reflective coach, Rachel DeRogatis, we thought of a way to build more practice into my routine. So here you can see a sample where you can see that in 1 week, students are introduced to a standard or a skill, they practice it, and then the following week they have another opportunity to practice that and then are introduced to a new one. And so now students are seeing two standards per week instead of one, which increases the amount of time students interact with a particular skill. And so for inquiry cycle two, I wanted to start to take on some of the more complex standards that in the past I, sometimes had avoided or have kind of been intimidated by. And so what we did is we spent quite a bit of time, as you see in the screenshot there, a sample, digging deep into one of the most complex standards for ninth grade, which was TOD 401, which is thinking about adding relevant details to a passage. And so we spent a lot of time breaking it down, writing a lot on the board to try to figure out how to build this into more smaller skills that can be taught. And that led really nicely into inquiry cycle three, where after understanding the standard myself, we planned lessons based on the broken down standard. And so we figured that the best way to attack this standard would be to teach it over the course of 3 days or through 3 lessons, because that would break down a really heavy skill into three small, more accessible access points for students. So here you can see a little screenshot of the slideshow that I used. So you can see that students saw it over the course of 3 days, which built in rigor and complexity. And you can also see that there is the handout that was, again, over the course of 3 days, building a complexity each day. And so this was what I implemented to try to see how students would start to master this previously really daunting standard. So I taught the standard, and after teaching it and going through the lessons that you just saw a sample of, at the end of the quarter, I was able to see the data. And so this is from the previous quarter. This is quarter two interim exam. You can see in the TOD standard overall, students had a 5.6% mastery. So like as you can see, historically, this has been a very rigorous sample or rigorous standard for students. And so in quarter three, which is after I implemented these lessons, student mastery went up to 25.4%, which is still a relatively low number, but historically this is a very high number for students to be able to achieve. And so this was really exciting to see. So for inquiry cycle five, I thought about, now that I've kind of broken down one complex standard and thought about how I can teach them, what are some other standards that maybe I need to think this way about? And so what I did was I created an alignment guide for power standards. And the purpose of this was for me to understand what are my students going to see moving forward. So as you can see in this alignment guide, I see how often these standards are assessed in 10th and 11th grade before they take the ACT. And then I also put some sample questions of each one at different grade levels. So that helps me know what do I need to prepare students for. And so when I taught one of these standards, I'll move it back here. You can see that there's this on the board here after teaching one on appositives and punctuation. It says you're looking ahead. And so what I found is after looking at the standard through that alignment guide, I found a way for students to practice something really easy, which is changing commas to dashes, something that they typically don't see until 10th grade. But I was able to introduce it very briefly, very naturally. And so students now had exposure to that. So when they see it in 10th grade, it might not be totally unfamiliar, but it still didn't take away from the time that I spent on it in my own class. So in thinking about this whole process, there were definitely three main areas of growth. The first one was student growth. The first area was, of course, student achievement on exams. More than that, I'm really excited to see them implement these skills even more in more organic ways beyond tests, such as their own writing. So they're able to really show mastery of these skills in that way. I also, just in myself, I mean, I should notice a big confidence in facing complex standards. Now that I've attacked a standard that, like I said, was previously very daunting, I feel like for me, I'm really excited to say that I've done that one. Now I can really take on any standard. So I'm really thrilled about that. And finally, team collaboration has really grown with that pacing plan. When I showed it to my department, my English department colleagues, there was a lot of really great conversation from them in thinking through what are some things that we can do as a department to continue to align and set up our students for success in later grade levels. So there's a lot of really great areas of growth. So I'm really thankful for this process. I feel like I've learned a lot, and this has been a really good opportunity for me to push myself in some areas that, to be honest, in the past I didn't think I had time for. So thank you for listening. I look forward to continuing to grow as an educator. Thank you.